If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. Dawn was falling heavily upon the mansion in Kensington, one of London's most exclusive neighbourhoods. The silence that enveloped that immense house was not the peaceful quiet of someone resting, but rather the heavy, dense kind of silence that seemed to suck the air out of the room, making everything harder to breathe. Marina knew that kind of atmosphere well. In recent months she had learned to read the moods of that house like one reads the sky before a storm. That night, or rather that Thursday dawn, Marina awoke with a start in the small maid's room at the back of the property. It wasn't a noise that woke her, but a strange sensation, an intuition she couldn't explain. She put on her worn bathrobe over her simple nightgown and walked barefoot through the mansion's cold corridors, her cautious steps avoiding any sound. Passing the main living room, she saw the silhouette of someone sitting on the Italian leather sofa, enveloped in gloom. It was him. Dr. Henry Alistair, the owner of the house, still wearing the crumpled suit from another endless day at the law firm he had inherited from his father. He held a crystal glass, and Marina noticed, even in the dim light filtering through the heavy curtains, that the whiskey bottle beside him was half empty. Marina hesitated. Should she go back? Pretend she hadn't seen anything? But something in the man's hunched posture, something in the way he held that glass as if it were the only thing keeping him connected to the real world, made her stop. Henry didn't notice her presence. Or if he did, he didn't show it. He just kept staring into space, at some spot on the wall where his wife's portrait used to hang. The portrait had been removed 2 weeks prior by order of Mrs. Beatrice, Henry's mother, who insisted that seeing that image every day only worsened her son's condition. Marina silently disagreed. Removing the portrait didn't erase the absence. It only made it more evident, more painful, like a wound that won't heal because no one dares to look at it. That's when it happened. Henry stood up abruptly, swaying slightly, and in doing so, knocked over the crystal glass. The sound of the glass shattering on the marble floor echoed through the entire house like a scream. Marina flinched but didn't move. She watched Henry look at the scattered shards with an expression of despair that went far beyond the mere loss of an object. It was as if that broken glass represented everything he could no longer keep whole. From upstairs, a trembling, sleepy voice was heard. It was Mrs. Beatrice, murmuring her deceased daughter-in-law's name, confusing present with past amidst the disorientation of interrupted sleep. Marina heard the lady's shuffling steps descending the stairs and hurried to fetch a broom and a dustpan, wanting to clean the mess before the situation worsened. But Henry didn't wait. He knelt on the floor and began picking up the shards with his bare hands, his trembling fingers cutting themselves on the sharp pieces of crystal. Marina saw blood begin to well up, and without a second thought ran to him. "Mr. Henry, don't do that. Please, let me take care of it." Her voice came out firmer than she intended, almost an order. Henry looked up at her, and Marina saw something in his gaze that made her recoil inwardly. It wasn't anger. It was pure, unfiltered pain, exposed in a way that left her speechless. He dropped the shards, his bloodied hands trembling, and awkwardly stood up. Marina knelt and carefully began to collect the pieces of glass, placing them on the small dustpan she had brought. Mrs. Beatrice arrived in the living room at that moment, wrapped in a wine-coloured silk robe, her grey hair dishevelled, her face marked by wrinkles that seemed to have deepened overnight. "Henry, what was that? What was that noise?" "Nothing, Mother. Just a glass. Go back to your room." His voice was hoarse, tired, distant. Beatrice looked at her son, then at Marina kneeling on the floor, and understood everything without needing words. She sighed deeply, an exhalation carrying months of accumulated worry, and shook her head. "You can't go on like this, my son." He didn't respond. He just turned his back and went upstairs, leaving a trail of small drops of blood along the way. Marina finished cleaning the shards in silence, while Beatrice remained standing there, like a statue of weariness and sorrow. "Marina, dear, thank you. You're always here when we need you." The employee simply nodded, not knowing what. to say. It wasn't gratitude she wanted, it was survival. That job was all she had to support her young daughter Julia, just 5 years old, who stayed with the neighbor, Mrs. Clara, during the days Marina worked at the mansion. Every pound she earned there was essential, and lately, with delayed payments, the situation was becoming increasingly difficult. Mrs. Beatrice slowly ascended the stairs, holding tightly to the banister, as if each step required an effort she could barely muster. Marina returned to her small room at the back, but sleep wouldn't come. She lay looking at the cracked ceiling, thinking about the strange life she led. During the day, she cleaned a house full of luxury and empty of joy. At night, she returned to the cramped shack where she shared space with her daughter and the increasingly distant dreams of a better life. By 6 in the morning, Marina was already up, preparing breakfast in the mansion's spacious kitchen. Daylight began to stream through the wide windows, but the house remained gloomy. She brewed strong coffee the way Mrs. Beatrice liked it, cut fresh fruit, toasted bread, and set out the imported strawberry jam that was never missing from the pantry. Every gesture was automatic, rehearsed by months of routine. At 7 o'clock sharp, Mrs. Beatrice came down for breakfast, already dressed in an expensive fabric dress, her hair pulled back in an impeccable bun, discreet makeup hiding deep dark circles under her eyes. She sat at the large dining room table where they used to gather when the family was still complete. Now, that enormous table seemed a desert of loneliness. "Marina, where is Henry?" "He hasn't come down yet, Mrs. Beatrice." "And little Laura? Has she woken up?" "I haven't heard any noise from her room yet." Beatrice sighed and began to drink her coffee in silence. Marina remained standing nearby, awaiting orders, as she always did, but Beatrice gave no orders. She just kept staring at her coffee, lost in thoughts Marina dared not imagine. That's when they heard crying. A sharp, desperate cry coming from the second-floor bedroom. Baby Laura, just 8 months old, was waking up, and with her, all the anguish of that house also awoke. Beatrice stood up abruptly, but before she could take a step, Henry appeared at the top of the stairs. He was in pajama bottoms and a t-shirt, his hair disheveled, his eyes red from insomnia or crying. Marina couldn't tell. He looked at his daughter's bedroom door, hesitated, and then descended the stairs without approaching the room. "Henry, Laura is crying." "I know, Mother." "Aren't you going to her?" He stopped halfway down the stairs, his hands gripping the banister tightly. Marina saw his knuckles turn white from the pressure. Henry opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He just shook his head and continued descending. Marina watched Beatrice close her eyes, trying to control her frustration. The lady climbed the stairs with difficulty, each step a visible effort, and entered her granddaughter's room. The crying subsided a little, but didn't stop completely. Marina knew Beatrice was trying to help, but the baby missed something no one in that house could provide. She missed her mother. She missed Camilla. Henry entered the dining room, sat at the table, and stared at the empty plate in front of him. Marina served coffee, placed toast, jam, fruit. He touched nothing. He just sat there, motionless, like a statue of a man who had given up on living. Marina returned to the kitchen and began washing dishes, but kept her ears attuned to the sounds of the house. She heard Beatrice coming down the stairs with the baby in her arms. Laura was still whimpering, her little face red and wet with tears. Beatrice tried to rock her, make soothing sounds, but the little one wouldn't calm down. "Henry, take your daughter, she needs you." He looked at his mother, then at the baby, and Marina saw panic cross his face. It was as if he was afraid of his own daughter, afraid to touch her, to hold her, to fail her in the same way he believed he had failed Camilla. "Mother, I don't know, I can't—" "You have to try, Henry. This girl lost her mother. She can't lose her father, too." Beatrice's words fell like heavy stones into the silence of the room. Henry stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair in the process, and left the room without looking back. The front door slammed shut. He had gone out. Beatrice stood there, holding her granddaughter, who was crying louder and louder, and Marina saw a solitary tear roll down the lady's face. Without thinking, Marina approached. "Mrs. Beatrice, let me hold her for a bit. You need to rest." Beatrice looked at Marina with tired gratitude and handed the baby to the employee. Marina felt the child's tiny weight and began to gently rock her, humming a melody she used to sing to Julia when she was a baby. Surprisingly, Laura began to calm down. Her sobs lessened. Her red little eyes began to blink sleepily. Beatrice watched the scene with a mixture of relief and sadness. "You have a way with children, Marina. You always have." Marina didn't respond. She just continued rocking the baby, feeling the tiny accelerated heart begin to slow against her chest. She thought of Julia and how difficult it was to leave her daughter every day to come and care for another child. But life was like that, full of painful ironies. When Laura finally fell asleep, Marina carefully took her back to her crib. The baby's room was a world of delicacy and luxury, wallpaper with bird designs, expensive light wood furniture, soft fabric curtains, imported toys scattered everywhere. Everything money could buy, everything except a mother's presence. Marina returned to the kitchen and continued her chores, washing, drying, putting away, cleaning, organizing. The routine was relentless. At noon, Mrs. Beatrice asked her to tidy the room that had belonged to Camilla. It was a task Marina had been avoiding for weeks, always finding an excuse, always hoping someone in the family would take the initiative. But now there was no way to postpone it. She went upstairs and opened the bedroom door. The still air greeted her like a silent ghost. Everything was exactly as Camilla had left it. Clothes hanging in the immense closet, shoes neatly lined up, books on the bedside table, a half-empty glass of water beside the bed. It was as if she had left for a trip and would return at any moment. Marina began to work in silence, organizing the clothes into boxes, carefully folding each item. Party dresses, casual blouses, elegant trousers. Each item told a story. Marina found herself imagining who that woman had been. Camilla had always been polite to her, but distant, cordial, but hierarchical. Even so, Marina felt there was something genuine about her, something that made her different from the other ladies Marina had worked for. Opening one of the dresser drawers, Marina found a diary, a light pink hardback notebook with a satin ribbon marking a page. She knew she shouldn't read it. She knew it was private, intimate, sacred, but curiosity was stronger. She opened to the marked page and read Camilla's last written words. "I'm scared. Scared of not being good enough. Scared of failing my daughter the same way my mother failed me. Henry is so distant lately, so caught up in work, so absent. I feel like I'm raising Laura alone. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not strong enough?" Marina quickly closed the diary, her heart aching. Camilla was scared. The woman who seemed to have everything, who lived in that mansion surrounded by luxury and privilege, was afraid of not being good enough. It was so human, so vulnerable, so similar to the fears Marina also carried. She put the diary back in the drawer and continued organizing the room, but now with a lump in her throat. When she finished, it was already late afternoon. Beatrice appeared at the door and looked at the stacked boxes. "Thank you, Marina. I know it wasn't easy." "Mrs. Beatrice, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think Dr. Henry will be okay?" Beatrice was silent for a long moment, looking at her daughter-in-law's empty room. "I don't know, Marina. I really don't know. He loved Camilla very much, and when she was gone, it was as if a part of him went with her. He can't even look at his own daughter without feeling pain. And it's destroying him. It's destroying all of us." Marina nodded, not knowing what to say. Beatrice left the room, and Marina followed her, closing the door carefully. They descended the stairs together, and when they reached the living room, they saw Henry entering through the front door. He was in the same clothes as that morning, but seemed even more disheveled, more lost. He walked past them without a word and went up to the office on the second floor, locking himself inside. Beatrice sighed deeply. "Marina, can you stay a little longer today? Just until I put Laura to sleep. I need help." Marina thought of Julia, who was with Mrs. Clara. She thought she had already arranged to pick her up at 7, but she looked at Beatrice, at the weariness etched on the face of that woman who was trying to keep everything in. Order alone, and nodded. "Of course, Mrs. Beatrice, I'll stay." The hours passed slowly. Marina helped bathe Laura, prepare her bottle, change her diapers. The baby was calmer now, but there was still a sadness in her little eyes that broke Marina's heart. It was as if she felt her mother's absence, even being so small. When Laura finally fell asleep in her crib, it was already past 9 in the evening. Marina was exhausted, but she didn't complain. Beatrice thanked her with sincere weariness and told her she could leave. Marina picked up her old bag where she kept a change of Julia's clothes that she always carried with her, and headed for the door. That's when she heard the scream, a muffled but desperate scream coming from Henry's office. Marina stopped, her heart racing. Beatrice also heard it and ran upstairs with the agility that the adrenaline of fear can provide. Marina followed her. Beatrice knocked on the office door. "Henry? Henry, what's wrong? Open the door." Nothing. Silence. Beatrice tried to open it, but it was locked. Marina saw the panic on the lady's face and, without thinking, ran to the kitchen, grabbed the spare key that hung on a small key rack and ran back. Beatrice opened the door with trembling hands. The scene they found left them paralyzed. Henry was sitting on the floor amidst scattered papers and empty bottles, holding a photo of Camilla and sobbing convulsively, desperately. It was the cry of someone who could no longer bear the weight alone. Beatrice ran to her son and knelt beside him, hugging him tightly. Marina stood frozen at the door, unsure whether to stay or leave. But something kept her there. Perhaps it was the humanity of that scene, perhaps it was the realization that, at that moment, those people weren't employers. They were just broken people trying to survive the pain. Henry looked up and saw Marina standing there, and for the first time in months, their gazes truly met. Not as employer and employee, but as two people who understood, each in their own way, what it was like to carry a burden too heavy for their own shoulders. Marina said nothing. She just nodded slightly, as if to say she understood, that she was there, that she wouldn't judge. And in that small gesture something changed, something invisible yet real, like a crack in a wall that seemed whole, but was about to crumble anyway. Beatrice helped Henry up and led him to his room. Marina went downstairs, picked up her bag, and left through the front door, walking down the dark street towards the bus stop. The night was cold, the wind biting, but she barely felt it. Her head was full of confused thoughts, of images of that broken man, that motherless baby, that crumbling family. When she arrived at the shack where she lived with Julia, the girl was sleeping on the thin mattress on the floor. Mrs. Clara was dozing in the plastic chair beside her. Marina thanked her softly, paid the £20 for the day, and the neighbor left. She lay down beside her daughter, smelling the cheap shampoo in her hair, and hugged the girl tightly. Julia stirred a little and murmured sleepily, "Mommy, you took a long time." "Sorry, my love. Work was long today." "Is everything okay, Mom?" Marina thought about the question. She thought about the mansion, Henry's crying, Beatrice's empty gaze, baby Laura's sad little face. She thought about everything she had witnessed that day and all the days before. "Everything's fine, daughter. Sleep now." But Marina knew that nothing was fine, neither in that mansion nor in that shack. The whole world seemed to be crumbling, each in its own way, and she, in the midst of it all, tried to stay on her feet. Not for herself, but for the girl sleeping in her arms, for the silent promise she had made to give Julia a better life, even if, for that, she had to clean up the pain of others every day, even if, for that, she had to be invisible, even if, for that, she had to swallow her own sadness and keep going, because stopping was not an option. Marina closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but sleep was slow to come. And when it finally arrived, it was full of confused dreams, where mansions and shacks mingled, where babies cried and men broke, where everything was hazy and uncertain. Because life, Marina was learning, was rarely clear, rarely fair, and almost never offered easy answers to difficult questions. The following days at the Allister mansion unfolded like a silent dance between despair and forced routine. Marina always arrived at 6 in the morning, entered through the back door, and began her chores even before the sun fully rose. Henry avoided the house as much as possible, leaving early for the office and returning late when everyone was already asleep. Beatrice tried to keep up appearances, but weariness was winning the battle against her willpower, and little Laura cried more and more, as if the emptiness of the house penetrated her small heart. Marina observed everything in silence, doing her work with the efficiency of someone who had learned to be invisible. But something had changed inside her since that night she saw Henry broken on the office floor. She could no longer look at that family merely as employers. There was a humanity there that touched her in an uncomfortable way, making her think about things she shouldn't think about. One Friday morning, Marina was cleaning the living room when she heard the doorbell ring. She found it strange, as visitors were rare. She opened the door and was faced with an elegant woman, with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, wearing a beige tailored suit that must have cost more than Marina earned in 6 months. The woman had a professional smile on her face, but her eyes were cold, calculating. "Good morning, is Mrs. Beatrice in?" "Yes, she is. Whom shall I announce?" "Lucy Fletcher. I'm a family friend." Marina led her to the living room and went to call Beatrice, who came down with the expression of someone not expecting visitors, much less desiring them. But upon seeing Lucy, her face hardened even more. "Lucy? What a surprise. Beatrice, dear, I came to see how you all are. It's been a while since we spoke." The two women greeted each other with air kisses, that kind of false affection Marina had seen so many times among elite people. Beatrice asked Marina to serve coffee, and she obeyed, preparing the tray with the fine porcelain cups and imported biscuits kept for special occasions. While serving, Marina kept her ears attuned to the conversation unfolding in the living room. Lucy spoke in a low tone, but there was a dangerous insistence in her voice. "Beatrice, you know I was always Camilla's friend, and I know how much Henry is suffering, but life goes on, doesn't it? He needs to move forward. For him, for Laura, for all of you." Beatrice took a sip of coffee before responding, weighing each word. "Henry will recover in his own time, Lucy, there's no rush." "But Beatrice, it's been almost a year, and he's closing himself off more and more. Maybe he needs someone, a companion, someone who understands his position, who can help him get back to living." Marina saw Beatrice's gaze harden. "If you're implying what I think you are, Lucy, you can forget it. Henry isn't ready for any of that, and even if he were, it would be none of your business." Lucy smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, Beatrice, I was just trying to help. But anyway, I also came here to talk about next month's charity dinner. I'm counting on your presence. It would be important for the family's image, you understand." Marina discreetly withdrew, but continued listening to the conversation while washing dishes in the kitchen. Lucy stayed for another half-hour, talking about social events, business, about people Marina didn't even know. But the underlying tone of that whole conversation was clear. Lucy had her eyes on Henry, and Beatrice knew it. When the visitor finally left, Beatrice returned to the living room with a heavy sigh. Marina appeared to collect the cups and saw the lady sit on the sofa with an exhausted expression. "Marina, did you hear the conversation?" Marina hesitated, but nodded. Beatrice gave a tired smile. "That woman is like a vulture. Camilla is barely gone and she already has her eyes on Henry. She's always been in love with him, you know, since before he got married. She never accepted it when he chose Camilla. Do you think she'll persist?" "I'm sure. Lucy is persistent. And the worst part is she has influence. Her family has business dealings with ours. I can't just send her away." Marina didn't know what to say. She just collected the cups and returned to the kitchen, but the conversation kept hammering in her head. There was something predatory about that woman, something that deeply bothered her. In the afternoon, Beatrice asked Marina to fetch some documents from Henry's office. It was a simple task, but upon entering that room, Marina felt the weight of his presence. The desk was covered with papers, contracts, legal proceedings. There were empty glasses scattered around, evidence of the nights he spent there, drinking alone, trying to forget. Marina found the documents Beatrice had requested, but as she turned to leave, her gaze was drawn to a framed photo on the shelf. It was Henry and Camilla on their wedding day. They were radiant, embracing, smiling at the camera with that kind of happiness that seems impossible to destroy. But it had been. Life had a cruel way of destroying even the most solid happiness. Marina found herself looking at Henry in the photo. He was younger, lighter, more alive, so different from the broken man she saw every day. She wondered what could have happened to transform that smiling man into a ghost of himself. "Marina," she turned around, startled. Henry was standing in the office doorway looking at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. Marina felt her face flush with embarrassment for having been caught looking at his things. "I'm sorry, Dr. Henry. Mrs. Beatrice asked me to fetch some documents. I'm just leaving." She tried to pass him, but Henry didn't move from the doorway. He looked at the photo Marina had been observing, and something in his face broke again. "Did you know her?" Marina stopped, confused. "Mrs. Camilla?" "Yes, I worked here for the last few months before she passed away." Henry nodded slowly, still looking at the photo. "She was special, you know. Different from all the women I knew. She cared about people. Truly. She didn't pretend. Did she talk to you?" Marina remembered the few times Camilla had stopped to ask about her daughter, to praise her work, to simply be kind in a way that wasn't obligatory. "Yes, she was always very polite to me." Henry laughed, but it was a bitter, joyless laugh. Polite. That word doesn't do her justice. She was pure kindness, Marina. And I didn't know how to appreciate it. I was always working, always busy, always thinking we had all the time in the world, and now... He didn't finish the sentence. He just stood there, looking at the photo, as if he could bring her back with the sheer force of his gaze. Marina felt a strange urge to comfort the man, to tell him it wasn't his fault, that life sometimes just happens in ways we can't control. But she said nothing, because it wasn't her place, because she was just the employee. "Sorry to bother you, Dr. Henry. I'll take the documents to Mrs. Beatrice." This time he moved away from the door and let her pass, but Marina felt his gaze on her back as she descended the stairs. It was a heavy gaze, laden with something she couldn't name. In the late afternoon, as Marina was finishing organizing the pantry, Beatrice appeared with Laura in her arms. The baby was irritable, refusing her bottle, crying incessantly. Beatrice was visibly exhausted. "Marina, can you try? She doesn't want to eat, and I don't know what else to do." Marina wiped her hands and took the baby in her arms. Laura continued crying for a few seconds, but gradually calmed down. Marina began to rock her, softly humming the same lullaby she sang to Julia. And, surprisingly, Laura began to accept the bottle. Beatrice observed the scene with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. "You have a gift, Marina. Laura calms down with you in a way she doesn't with anyone else, not with me, not with Henry." Marina didn't know what to say. She just continued rocking the baby, feeling the tiny weight in her arms, the warmth of her little body, the absolute trust that only small children can have. And she thought of Julia, who also needed her but who had to share her mother with that other child. "Mrs. Beatrice, may I ask a question?" "Of course." "Do you think Dr. Henry will be able to care for Laura? I mean truly, not just provide, but be present." Beatrice was silent for a long moment, looking out the window at the empty garden outside. "I don't know, Marina. I really don't know. Henry is so lost, so caught up in his own pain that he can't see the daughter right in front of him. And I'm tired, too old to raise a child. But someone needs to do it. Someone needs to be present in this girl's life." "What if that someone can't be family?" Beatrice looked at Marina with an expression that was difficult to interpret. "What do you mean?" Marina hesitated, feeling she was treading on dangerous ground. "Nothing. Sorry, I said too much." "No, Marina. Tell me what you were thinking." Marina took a deep breath, knowing that what she was about to say could change everything. "I just think that sometimes the people who care aren't the ones with the blood, tie. They are the ones who are present, the ones who choose to stay even when it's difficult." Beatrice looked at Marina for a long moment, and something passed between them. A silent understanding, an unspoken truth. Beatrice nodded slowly. You are wise, Marina. Wiser than many people with diplomas hanging on their walls. Marina finished feeding Laura her bottle and put her in the crib. The baby was sleepy, finally peaceful. When Marina returned to the kitchen, she found Henry there rummaging through a drawer looking for something. "Can I help, Dr. Henry?" He turned around, looking a little lost. "I'm looking for aspirin. I have a terrible headache." Marina opened the correct cupboard and took out the medicine box, handing it to him. Henry took 2 pills and swallowed them with water. They stood there for a few seconds, and strange silence filling the space between them. "Marina, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you have children?" "I have a daughter, Julia. She's 5 years old. And her father." Marina felt the discomfort of the question, but answered honestly. "He left when she was born. He never wanted to know her." Henry nodded as if that confirmed something he already suspected about life. "It must be difficult, raising a child alone." "It is. But we do what we have to do, right? For our children." Henry looked at her with an intensity Marina had never seen before. "What if you don't know how? What if you're afraid to fail?" Marina thought about the question. She thought about all the nights she had stayed awake, worried about bills, about food, about Julia's future. She thought about all the fears she carried alone. "Everyone is afraid to fail, Dr. Henry, but we can't let fear win because children need us. They don't understand our fears. They just know they need love, presence, someone who won't give up on them." Henry remained silent, processing her words. And then, for the first time since Marina had known him, he seemed to truly listen to her, not as an employee giving an automatic answer, but as a person saying something he needed to hear. "Thank you, Marina." He left the kitchen before she could respond. Marina stood there, her heart beating faster than it should, feeling that something important had just happened, even if she didn't know exactly what. That night, as Marina was about to leave, Beatrice called her into the living room. There was an envelope in her hands. "Marina, I know we're late with your payment. Here's what we owe, plus an extra. You've been much more than an employee to this house. You've been a blessing." Marina took the envelope with trembling hands. When she opened it and saw the amount, her eyes filled with tears. It was more than she normally earned. It was enough to pay the overdue bills, to buy medicine for Julia that she had been postponing, to finally breathe a little. "Mrs. Beatrice, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. You deserve it. And more than that, you matter, to me, to Laura. And I know you have your own daughter waiting for you, so I want to make you an offer." Marina looked at her, confused. "From now on, you can bring your daughter here during the day. She can play in the playroom we set up for Laura. It doesn't make sense for you to pay someone to look after her when she can be here, safe, while you work. What do you think?" Marina couldn't hold back her tears. It was more than she could have hoped for. It was a generosity she didn't know existed. I don't know how to thank you." "Just keep doing what you do, taking care of this house, taking care of Laura, and in a way, taking care of all of us." Marina left the mansion that night with a lighter heart than she had had in months. When she arrived home and told Julia that she could come to work with Mommy starting Monday, the girl jumped for joy. "Really, Mum? I'm going to see where—" "You work?" "Yes, my love. And there will be toys and a big garden and a little baby for you to keep company." Julia hugged Marina tightly, and they stayed like that for a long moment, mother and daughter, holding on to each other like anchors in the storm of life. The following Monday, Marina arrived at the mansion with Julia by the hand. The girl was enchanted by the size of the house, by the gardens, by everything. Beatrice received the two with a genuine smile and showed Julia the playroom. The girl was amazed. While Julia played, Marina began her chores. But everything felt lighter now. Knowing her daughter was there, safe, happy, changed everything. She worked, humming softly, feeling something akin to hope for the first time in a long time. Henry appeared at lunchtime, which was unusual for him. He usually stayed at the office late, but today he was there, and when he saw Julia playing in the living room with some of Laura's toys, he stopped. "Who is that?" "That's my daughter, Julia, Dr. Henry." Mrs. Beatrice allowed her to stay here during the day. Henry nodded but kept watching the girl for a few seconds. Julia played animatedly, creating stories with the dolls, completely immersed in her imaginary world, and there was something in that scene, in that childish purity, that touched Henry in a way he didn't expect. "She's beautiful. She looks like you." Marina smiled, her heart warming at the compliment. "Thank you." Henry remained standing there, watching, and then, to Marina's surprise, he sat on the floor beside Julia. The girl looked at him with curiosity. "Do you want to play with me?" Henry hesitated but nodded. And there, on the living room floor, a man in a suit and a 5-year-old girl began to play together. Marina watched the scene with tears in her eyes, realizing that it was more than she could have imagined. It was a step, small but important, a step towards healing. Beatrice appeared and saw the scene. She looked at Marina and the two exchanged a look of understanding. Something was changing in that house. Slowly, like a dawn that begins imperceptibly but gradually illuminates everything, the light was returning. When Laura woke from her afternoon nap, Henry was still in the living room. Beatrice brought the baby and, for the first time in months, offered her to her son without saying anything. Henry hesitated, fear visible in his eyes, but then he looked at Julia, who was smiling at him, and something within him opened up. He extended his arms and took his daughter. Laura looked at him with those big, curious eyes, not understanding why that man was so nervous. Henry held her carefully, as if she were made of glass, and tears began to stream down his face. "I'm sorry, my little one. I'm sorry for not having been here." Laura didn't understand the words, but she felt the emotion, and, surprisingly, she didn't cry. She just kept looking at her father, as if meeting him for the first time. Marina observed everything in silence, her heart tight with emotion. She had helped build that. Unknowingly, unplanned, just by being who she was, just by doing what she thought was right, she had been the bridge that family needed to reconnect. And as she watched Henry holding his daughter for the first time in months, as she saw Beatrice crying with relief, as she felt Julia pull her hand asking to play more, Marina understood something profound about life. Sometimes greatness isn't in grand gestures, it's in small acts of courage. It's in choosing to stay when it would be easier to leave. It's in offering kindness when the world demands harshness. It's in building bridges where others see only abysses. And at that moment, in that living room with the afternoon light streaming through the windows and illuminating that family slowly rebuilding itself, Marina knew she was exactly where she was supposed to be, even if it was just for that moment, even if everything could change tomorrow. For now it was enough. The following weeks brought a subtle but profound transformation to the Alistair mansion. The house that once seemed a silent mausoleum now echoed with children's voices, Julia's laughter, and even some babbling from little Laura. Henry began to come home earlier from work, not every day, but with a frequency that surprised everyone, especially Beatrice, who watched her son slowly reborn. Marina continued doing her work with the same dedication as always, but now there was something different in the air. The glances between her and Henry had become more frequent, more lingering, laden with a meaning neither dared to name. They were just seconds, stolen moments, amidst the routine, but enough to make Marina's heart beat out of sync whenever he appeared. One Thursday morning, while Marina was preparing coffee in the kitchen and Julia was playing in the garden with Laura on Beatrice's lap, the doorbell rang. Marina went to answer it and was again faced with Lucy Fletcher, this time wearing an even more elegant outfit, her blonde hair falling in perfect waves over her shoulders, impeccable makeup highlighting her calculating green eyes. "Good morning, is Henry in?" Marina felt a tightness in her chest that she shouldn't have felt. After all, it was. None of her business what Henry did or didn't do, but still, there was something about that woman that deeply bothered her. "Dr. Henry is in his office, but I believe he's on an important call." Lucy entered without waiting for an invitation, her high heels echoing on the marble floor. "That's fine, I'll wait. Can you let him know I'm here, please?" Marina went upstairs and knocked on the office door. Henry opened it, his reading glasses hanging from his shirt collar, his tie loosened. He looked tired, but it was a different kind of tiredness than Marina had seen months ago. It was the tiredness of someone who is working, not of someone who is merely surviving. "Dr. Henry, Mrs. Lucy is here. She wants to speak with you." Henry's face immediately hardened. "Lucy, what does she want now?" "I don't know. She just said she wants to speak with you." Henry sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. "All right, let her come up." Marina went downstairs and informed Lucy, who ascended the stairs with a confident smile. Marina returned to the kitchen, but couldn't help her mind from wondering what that woman wanted with Henry. She tried to concentrate on washing dishes, but her thoughts kept returning to the office upstairs. Half an hour later, Lucy descended the stairs with a satisfied expression. She passed by the kitchen and saw Marina there. "Oh, you're still here. Tell Mrs. Beatrice that Henry confirmed his attendance at the charity dinner. It will be next Saturday at 8 in the evening. It's important that everyone is well presented. It's a gala event." Marina merely nodded, feeling the condescension in Lucy's tone. The woman left through the front door, leaving a trail of expensive perfume behind. Marina took a deep breath, trying to control the irritation she felt. Beatrice entered the kitchen with Laura in her arms, Julia following closely behind. Who was that? Lucy Fletcher. She said Dr. Henry confirmed his presence at the charity dinner on Saturday. Beatrice frowned. Charity dinner? Henry didn't tell me anything about that. She said it's important that everyone is well presented. Beatrice gave an ironic smile. Of course she did. Lucy has always been obsessed with appearances, and now that Henry is starting to come out of his slump, she's going to intensify her efforts to hook him. I know the type. Marina felt a pang of something that dangerously resembled jealousy, but she tried to ignore it. It wasn't her business. She was just the employee. But why then did the idea of Henry with Lucy bother her so much? Saturday arrived too quickly. Beatrice spent the week organizing the preparations, choosing dresses, booking a hairdresser, a manicurist, all to ensure the Alistair family looked impeccable at the event. Marina helped with everything, ironing clothes, organizing accessories, taking care of Laura while Beatrice got ready. Julia was enchanted to see Beatrice in her gala dress, a long navy, blue gown that made her look like a queen. Laura clapped her hands excitedly, and even Marina couldn't help but admire the lady's elegance. When Henry came down the stairs, Marina felt the air leave her lungs. He was in a black tuxedo, impeccably fitted, his hair slicked back, his beard perfectly trimmed. He was unrecognizable, so different from the disheveled, broken man she had known months ago. He was dazzling. Their eyes met for a second, and Marina saw something pass across Henry's face, something that made her heart race, but it was only a second. Soon he averted his gaze and turned to his mother. "You look beautiful, Mother. And you look very well, my son. Camilla would be proud to see you like this." Camilla's name still caused an uncomfortable silence, but Henry merely nodded, swallowing his emotion. He approached Laura, who was in Marina's arms, and kissed his daughter's forehead. "Be a good girl for Marina, okay, little one?" Laura gave a toothless grin, and Henry smiled back. It was a small smile, but genuine, a smile that warmed the hearts of all who witnessed it. The limousine arrived and Beatrice and Henry departed. Marina stayed, at the mansion with the two girls, feeling a strange emptiness. She bathed Laura, played with Julia, prepared a simple dinner for the three of them. But her mind kept returning to Henry, imagining him at that event, surrounded by elegant people, talking to Lucy, perhaps even smiling at her. Marina reprimanded herself for the thoughts. She had no right to feel any of this. Henry was her employer, a man from another world, a world to which she would never belong. But the heart didn't understand logic, and the more she tried to ignore what she felt, the stronger it became. It was almost midnight when Marina heard the car arrive. She was in the living room reading a book borrowed from the mansion's library, while Julia and Laura slept in the playroom. The door opened, and Beatrice entered, looking exhausted but satisfied. "Marina, dear, are you still awake? You didn't have to wait." "I was just finishing reading. How was the event?" Beatrice sighed, taking off her high heels with a groan of relief. "Tiring, full of fake people making empty promises." But it was important for the family business. Henry did well. He spoke with several partners, closed some deals. He's returning to the man he once was. And Mrs. Lucy? Beatrice's face hardened. That woman didn't leave Henry alone all night, clinging to him like a limpet, talking, laughing loudly, touching his arm at every opportunity. It was embarrassing. And him? Beatrice gave a tired smile. Henry was polite, as always, but I know my son. He was uncomfortable. Lucy isn't the type of woman he admires. She's beautiful, rich, influential, but she lacks substance. She lacks truth. Marina nodded, feeling a relief she shouldn't have felt. Beatrice looked at her with a thoughtful expression. Marina, may I ask you a personal question? Of course, Mrs. Beatrice. Have you ever been in love? Marina felt her face flush. The question took her by surprise. Yes, once, with Julia's father. But that was a long time ago. And what happened? Marina gave a sad smile. I was young, naive. I thought he loved me, but when he found out I was pregnant, he left. I never looked back. Beatrice nodded, as if that confirmed something she already suspected. Love is complicated, Marina. Sometimes we fall in love with the wrong people. Sometimes we ignore the right people, because they don't fit what we imagined. Life has a strange way of surprising us. Marina didn't know what to say. There was something in Beatrice's tone that suggested she was talking about more than just Marina's past. But before she could ask, Henry entered through the door. He looked tired, his eyes heavy, but when he saw Marina there, something in his expression changed. He stopped, his eyes fixed on her for a moment that seemed to last an eternity. Marina, you're still here. I was just waiting for Mrs. Beatrice to return. I'm going to get Julia and... Leave now. No need to rush, it's late. It's dangerous for you to be walking around at this hour. Why don't you stay here tonight? There's the guest room. You and Julia can stay. Marina looked at Beatrice, who nodded in agreement. Henry is right. It's too late for you to leave. Stay here. Tomorrow is Sunday, you can rest. Marina hesitated, but the offer was tempting. She was tired, and the idea of not having to take a bus late at night was a relief. Thank you. I accept. Beatrice went up to her room, leaving Marina and Henry alone in the living room. The silence between them was heavy, dense. Henry loosened his tie, taking off his tuxedo jacket. How was Laura? Was she difficult? No, she was an angel. She slept soundly. And your daughter? Julia is great. She loves playing with Laura. Henry smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his face. I noticed. Julia is a special girl. You've done a good job raising her alone. Marina felt her heart clench. I do what I can. Henry took a step towards her, and Marina felt the proximity like a wave of heat. Marina, I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for this house, for me, for my mother, for Laura. You've brought life back to this place. I don't know if I managed to express it before, but thank you. Marina looked at him, and in that moment she saw beyond the employer, beyond the rich man, beyond the social barrier that separated them. She saw a vulnerable man, trying to find his way, trying to be better. No need to thank me, Dr. Henry. I just did what was right. But many people wouldn't. Many people would only do the bare minimum. But you care. Truly. And that makes all the difference. They stood there looking at each other, and Marina felt something stir within her, something dangerous, something forbidden, something she knew she couldn't allow, but it was there, pulsing between them like an invisible electric current. Henry seemed to notice it too because he took a step back, running a hand through his hair in a nervous gesture. Well, it's late. You must be tired. The guest room is on the second floor, third door on the right. There are towels in the closet and everything you need. Thank you. Good night, Marina. Good night, Dr. Henry. He went upstairs, and Marina stood there, her heart still racing, trying to understand what had just happened. She knew she was treading on dangerous ground. She knew what she was feeling was impossible, imprudent, potentially destructive. But it was there, and ignoring it wouldn't make it disappear. Marina went to the playroom, carefully picked up Julia and Laura without waking them, and took them to the guest room. It was a spacious room with a king-size bed, noble wood furniture, silk curtains, a room that probably was worth more than everything Marina owned in the world. She laid the girls on the bed, covering them carefully, and watched them sleep. Julia and Laura, side by side, so different in their origins, yet so alike in their innocence. And Marina wondered what the future held for all of them. On Sunday morning, Marina woke up to the smell of coffee. She went downstairs and found Henry in the kitchen, trying to prepare breakfast. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair messy, and there was something so domestic about that scene that made Marina smile. "Good morning, are you cooking?" Henry turned around a little embarrassed. "Trying. I thought it would be a good idea to give you a rest, but apparently I don't even know how to make scrambled eggs without burning them." Marina laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised both of them. "Let me help." They worked side by side in the kitchen, and Marina taught Henry the basic cooking tricks. There was something intimate about it, something that transcended the employer-employee relationship. It was just two people sharing a simple yet significant moment. When Beatrice came down, she found the two laughing in the kitchen, and a knowing smile crossed her face. She knew what was happening, even if those involved were still denying it. Breakfast was pleasant. Julia woke up animated. Laura babbled happily in her high chair, and for the first time in a long time, that house truly felt like a home. Not an empty, cold mansion, but a place where people cared about each other. After breakfast, Henry suggested that everyone go to the park. It was a beautiful, sunny day, and he wanted to spend time with Laura outside the house. Marina tried to refuse, saying she didn't want to disturb the family. "Moment," but Beatrice insisted. "You are part of this family, Marina. Not officially, but in all the ways that matter. Come with us." They went to Hyde Park, London's largest park. Henry pushed Laura's stroller, while Julia ran ahead, enchanted by the ducks on the lake. Beatrice walked beside Marina, and they talked about simple, everyday things, as two friends would. Marina watched Henry with Laura, and felt her heart clench. He was trying, truly trying to be a good father. And there was something so beautiful about it, so hopeful, that Marina couldn't look away. That's when Julia tripped and fell, scraping her knee. She started to cry, and Marina ran to help her, but Henry got there first. He knelt beside Julia, carefully cleaning her knee, speaking to her in a soft voice, distracting her from the pain with silly stories that made her laugh through her tears. Marina watched the scene with tears in her eyes. No one had ever cared for her daughter that way, no one but herself. And seeing Henry there, treating Julia with such tenderness, touched something deep in her heart. When they returned home, it was already late afternoon. Beatrice was tired and went to rest. The girls were sleeping after the busy day. Marina and Henry remained in the living room, a comfortable silence between them. "Marina, can I ask you a question?" "You can." "Why did you never try to build a new life? Meet someone, marry, give Julia a father?" Marina thought about the answer for a long moment. "Because I learned that it's better to be alone than with the wrong person, and because my priority has always been Julia, to ensure she had everything I didn't. There was no room left for anything else. And if there were, could you trust someone again?" Marina looked at Henry, and there was something in his eyes that made her feel vulnerable in a way she hadn't felt in years. "I don't know. Maybe. If it were the right person. If it was someone worth the risk." Henry held her gaze for a long moment, and Marina saw in those dark eyes something that both scared and attracted her. It was desire, yes, but it was more than that. It was connection. It was understanding. It was the recognition of two souls that found each other at the right time, even if all circumstances indicated it was the wrong time. "Marina," his voice came out hoarse, laden with emotion. He approached, and Marina felt her heart race. She knew she should pull away, that she should keep her distance, that it was dangerous. But her body wouldn't obey her reason. Henry raised his hand and gently touched her face, his thumb caressing her cheek. Marina closed her eyes, allowing herself to feel that touch for just a second. But then, reality returned with force. The doorbell rang, breaking the moment. Henry quickly pulled away, running a hand through his hair, in a gesture of frustration. Marina took a deep breath, trying to control her racing heart. Henry went to answer the door, and Marina heard a female voice. Lucy. Of course. It was always Lucy, appearing at the most inopportune moments. Marina stood up and went to the kitchen, wanting distance from that woman and everything she represented, but she couldn't help but overhear the conversation unfolding in the living room. Henry, darling, I came to see how you are. You left the event so early yesterday, I was worried. I'm fine, Lucy, I was just tired. You work too much. You need to relax a bit. Why don't we have dinner together tomorrow, just the two of us? We can talk about any new business ventures that arise. Lucy, I appreciate it, but I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? We've been friends for years, and I know Camilla would want you to move on, for you to allow yourself to be happy again. Marina felt anger burn within her upon hearing Lucy use Camilla's name that way, as if she had the right to speak about what Camilla would or wouldn't want. Henry, by his tone of voice, was also annoyed. You don't know what Camilla would want, Lucy, and I don't need anyone telling me how to move on. I'll go at my own pace, in my own way. Of course, darling. Sorry. I was just trying to help. Marina heard Lucy's footsteps retreating and the door closing. She returned to the living room and saw Henry standing there, visibly frustrated. I'm sorry you had to hear that. It's no problem. Henry looked at her with an intensity that made her tremble. Marina, about what happened earlier, no need to explain, it was just a moment. It meant nothing. Even as she said that, Marina knew she was lying. It had meant everything, and by Henry's gaze he knew it too. But before anyone could say anything else, Beatrice appeared with Laura in her arms. The baby was crying with a fever. Reality returned with force, and everyone rushed to care for the child, leaving that unfinished moment hanging in the air like a promise or a threat, depending on how one looked at it. Laura's fever persisted throughout Sunday night. Marina stayed awake helping Beatrice care for the baby, applying cold compresses, offering water, singing softly to calm her. Henry also didn't sleep, staying in the hallway near the room, entering every hour to check on his daughter. It was the first time he truly embraced the role of a father, and Marina saw in him a mixture of fear and determination that touched her heart. On Monday morning, the fever had subsided, but Laura was still fragile. The pediatrician was called and diagnosed a simple viral infection, nothing serious, but requiring care. Marina took responsibility for staying with the baby during the day, while Beatrice rested, and Henry went to the office, albeit reluctantly. Before leaving, Henry approached Marina, who was rocking Laura in her arms. Thank you for taking care of her. I know it goes beyond your job. Marina looked at him, and there was something different in his eyes. A softness, an openness that wasn't there before. I care about her, truly. I know. And that means more than you imagine. Their eyes met, and again that electric current passed between them. But this time, neither of them looked away. It was Julia who broke the moment, entering the room skipping. Mom, will Laura be okay? Yes, my love. She just needs a lot of affection. Henry knelt down to Julia's height, smiling at the girl. And you'll help take care of her, right? You're a great assistant. Julia smiled, radiant with the compliment. Yes, I will. I'm the best assistant in the world. Henry laughed, and Marina felt her heart clench. Seeing that man, who months ago was completely broken, now laughing with his daughter, was something she never imagined witnessing. During the following week, the house's routine found a new rhythm. Laura recovered completely. Henry began leaving work earlier to spend time with his daughter, and Julia became an inseparable part of that makeshift family. But the tension between Marina and Henry grew every day. Stolen glances, accidental proximity in the kitchen, conversations that extended beyond what was necessary. Everything conspired to bring them closer, even if both fought against it. It was on a Thursday evening that everything changed. Beatrice had gone out for dinner with old friends, something Marina and Henry insisted she do to get some rest. The girls were sleeping, and Marina was in the kitchen preparing tea when Henry appeared. Can't sleep? Marina turned around, startled. Henry was in pajama bottoms, and A t-shirt, his hair messy, his eyes tired but alert. "I was just making some tea. Want some?" "I do." They sat at the kitchen table, each with their cup, the silence between them laden with unspoken things. It was Henry who finally broke the silence. "Marina, we need to talk about what's happening between us." Marina felt her heart race. "Dr. Henry, I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't do that. Don't pretend you don't feel it. I know you feel it, because I feel it too. And it's driving me crazy, trying to ignore it." Marina looked at him and saw raw vulnerability in his eyes. "Henry, I'm your employee. You're my employer. This cannot happen. It shouldn't happen." "Why? Because society says it can't. Because people will talk. I care much more about what I feel than about what others will think. And I care about my daughter, about my job, about my survival. I can't afford to fall in love with you, Henry, even if I want to." The words came out before Marina could hold them back. She had confessed, unintentionally, what she had been trying to deny herself for weeks. Henry got up from his chair and approached her, kneeling beside her. "What if I told you I'm also falling in love with you, that every time I look at you, I see everything I thought I had lost? You've given me back the will to live, Marina, not just for caring for Laura or my mother, but for being who you are. True, courageous, kind, everything that truly matters." Marina felt tears stream down her face. "Henry, please, don't make this harder than it already is. You're from one world. I'm from another. This will never work." "Who said it wouldn't? Who wrote that rule? Why can't we create our own rules?" "Because I'm scared. Scared to believe, scared to give myself over, scared to be destroyed when you realize I'm not enough." Henry took Marina's face between his hands, looking deeply into her eyes. "You are more than enough. You are everything." And then he kissed her. A soft, hesitant kiss at first, but one that soon deepened, laden with all the tension accumulated in the previous weeks. Marina surrendered to the kiss, allowing herself to feel, allowing herself to believe, if only for that moment, that perhaps it was possible. When they separated, both were breathless. Marina placed her hand on her chest, feeling her heart beating out of rhythm. "This changes nothing. We're still impossible." "Then let's be impossible together." Marina laughed through her tears, and Henry hugged her. They stayed like that for long minutes, just embracing in the kitchen, the world outside forgotten. But reality always has a way of imposing itself. On Friday morning, when Marina arrived for work, she found Lucy already in the living room talking to Beatrice. By the tone of the conversation, it was clear that Lucy had come with a purpose. "Beatrice, you need to understand. I only want the best for Henry. And this situation, it's not appropriate." "What situation, Lucy?" Lucy looked at Marina with poorly disguised contempt. "The employee. It's clear that something is happening between her and Henry. People are starting to talk." Marina felt her blood run cold. How could Lucy know? Had someone seen them last night? Beatrice stood up, her posture regal even in a silk robe. "Lucy, what happens in this house is none of your business. And suggestions about who Henry should or shouldn't be involved with are, at the very least, presumptuous." "But Beatrice, think of the family's reputation. Think of Laura. What kind of example does this set? The kind of example that shows love knows no social classes? That character is worth more than a bank account? That kind of example?" Marina was stunned. Beatrice was defending her. Beatrice, who had every right to agree with Lucy, was on her side. Lucy turned red with anger. "You'll regret this, all of you." She left, slamming the door, and Beatrice turned to Marina with a tired smile. "That woman never gives up, but don't worry, dear. She has no power. Here, Mrs. Beatrice, I don't want to cause problems for the family." Beatrice approached and took Marina's hands. "Marina, you are not a problem. You are a solution. You brought light back into this house. And if my son is falling in love with you, then I can only be happy. Because you are exactly the kind of woman Camilla would have wanted him to find. Someone true." Marina felt tears in her eyes. "But people will talk. They will judge. Let them talk. Let them judge. We know the truth. And in the end, that's all that matters." That night, Henry returned home from work early. He seemed agitated, nervous. He asked to speak with Marina privately, and they went to the garden, where the twilight painted everything in shades of orange and pink. Lucy was in my office today. She made threats. She said she would spread rumors, that she would harm the family business if I didn't stay away from you. Marina felt her chest tighten. Then step away. It's not worth risking everything for me. Henry pulled her close, holding her face between his hands. Don't you understand? You're worth everything. All the risks, all the judgments, everything. I spent months thinking my life was over when Camilla left. But then you appeared. Quiet, kind, strong. And you showed me that there were still reasons to live, that there was still beauty in the world. I won't let you go, not without a fight. What if the fight destroys you? Then at least I will have fought for something worthwhile. Marina looked at that man, at the determination in his eyes, and understood that he was serious, that it wasn't a whim, it wasn't a phase, it was real. As real as what she felt for him. Henry knelt there in the garden and took Marina's hand. I know it's early, I know it's complicated, but I also know what I feel. Marina, I want you to be part of my life, of Laura's life, truly. Not as an employee, but as family, as a partner, as the woman I love. Marina felt the tears stream freely now. Henry, I love you too. But I'm scared. So scared. Me too. But we'll face this fear together. They kissed again, under the sky painted with warm colors, and Marina allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, fairy tales existed, that love could truly transcend barriers, that she deserved to be happy. The following months were a transition. Henry and Marina publicly acknowledged their relationship, facing curious glances, malicious comments, and even some loss of contracts from more conservative clients. But the family remained united. Beatrice became the couple's biggest defender, surprising everyone with her progressive stance. Laura grew up happy, with Marina becoming increasingly present in her life. And Julia finally had a paternal figure in Henry, who treated her like his own daughter. Lucy tried to carry out her threats, spreading rumors through London's high society. But she discovered that her influence wasn't as great as she imagined. The people who truly mattered, who really knew Henry, were happy to see him smiling again. And as for the others, well, their opinions made no difference. It was on a Saturday morning, 6 months after that conversation in the garden, that Henry gathered the whole family in the living room. Marina was nervous, not understanding what was happening. Beatrice smiled knowingly, clearly aware of something Marina wasn't. Henry knelt again, this time with a small velvet box in his hands. Marina felt her heart race. Marina, in these past months you've shown me what true love is. Not out of obligation, not out of convenience, but by choice. Every day you choose to be here. You choose to care for us. You choose to love me even with all my flaws. And I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you too. Will you marry me? Marina looked at the box, at the ring sparkling inside, at the man kneeling before her, at Beatrice smiling with tears in her eyes, at Laura and Julia clapping excitedly without fully understanding what was happening. And Marina understood that it was real, that this was her family now, that she deserved it. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Henry slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her, while Beatrice applauded and the girls shouted with joy. It was a perfect moment, imperfectly perfect, full of genuine love and courageous choices. The wedding took place 3 months later, a simple but elegant ceremony in the mansion's garden. Marina wore a simple but beautiful white dress, chosen with Beatrice's help. Julia was the flower girl, scattering rose petals along the path. Laura was too small to actively participate, but she was there in Beatrice's arms, wearing a little pink dress and happily drooling on a toy. Lucy was not invited, but she sent a gift anyway. A cold message wishing them happiness, but Henry and Marina didn't even care. That day was about them, about the love they had built despite all obstacles. At the party that followed, Marina danced with Henry under the garden lights, feeling like a princess in a fairy tale. But unlike traditional fairy tales, she hadn't been saved by a prince, she had saved herself. She had worked hard, she had been brave, she had chosen to believe in love, even when everyone said it was impossible. Beatrice approached them as they danced, her eyes shining with emotion. Camilla would be happy. I feel it in my heart. She would want to know that Henry found love again, and that Laura is being raised by someone who truly loves her. Marina hugged Beatrice, that woman who had become more than a mother-in-law. She had become a mother, a friend, an ally. Thank you for believing in me, Mrs. Beatrice, for giving me a chance when most wouldn't. Beatrice smiled, wiping away tears. Don't thank me. You saved this family, Marina. You brought light where there was only darkness. It is I who should thank you. Months turned into years. Marina and Henry built a life together, full of challenges, but also immeasurable joys. Julia grew up being treated exactly like Laura, without distinction, without preference. The two girls became true sisters, inseparable. Marina went back to studying, finishing the high school she had abandoned when she became pregnant with Julia. Henry supported her every step of the way, taking care of the girls when she needed to study, celebrating every achievement as if it were his own. And when Marina decided she wanted to study pedagogy, to work with children, Henry paid for her university without hesitation. The mansion that was once a silent mausoleum transformed into a home full of life. Laughter echoed through the corridors. Birthday parties filled the garden with children. Family dinners became sacred. Beatrice became the most present and loving grandmother the girls could ask for, actively participating in the upbringing of both. And Marina, the woman who entered that house as an employee, invisible in the eyes of society, became the heart of that family. Not because she cleaned or cooked, but because she loved. Because she chose to stay, because she transformed every day into an opportunity to build something beautiful. One summer evening, 5 years after the wedding, Marina and Henry were sitting in the garden, watching Julia and Laura playing with the new addition to the family, a stray dog they had adopted from the shelter. Beatrice was inside the house, preparing dinner, humming happily. Do you regret anything, for having risked everything for me? Marina looked at Henry, at the man who had become her husband, her partner, her best friend. Never, not for a second. And you? Henry pulled her closer, kissing her forehead. My only regret is not having realized what you meant sooner, having wasted months sinking into sadness when you were right there, in front of me, trying to show me that there were still reasons to live. Marina snuggled into his arms, feeling the deep peace that only comes when we know we are exactly where we are supposed to be. Everything happens at the right time, Henry. We wouldn't have been ready before. We needed to go through all that to appreciate what we have now. They stayed there in silence, watching the girls, listening to Beatrice sing in the kitchen, feeling the warm breeze of the London night. And Marina understood something profound about life. That happiness is not something we find. It is something we build. Brick by brick, choice by choice, day after day. She had started as an invisible woman, struggling to survive in a world that didn't care about her existence. But through love, courage, and determination, she had become visible. Not because someone finally saw her, but because she chose to see herself. She chose to believe she deserved more. She chose to fight for her place in the sun. And there in that garden, surrounded by the family she had helped rebuild, Marina knew that every tear, every difficulty, every moment of doubt had been worth it. Because life, with all its imperfections and challenges, was beautiful. It was worthy of being lived. It was worthy of being loved. Henry squeezed her hand, and they smiled at each other. That kind of smile that only two people who have been through the fire together and survived can share. A smile of complicity, of gratitude, of deep and true love. And as night gently fell over London, that makeshift but perfect family remained there, proving that love, when true, transcends everything. Social classes, judgments, fears, past pains. Love wins, always wins. Because in the end, it doesn't matter where we come from or what we've been through. What matters is where we're going. And Marina was going to the only place that truly mattered. Home, to the home she had helped build with her own hands, with her own heart, with her own courage to believe that happy endings do exist. Yes, for those audacious enough to fight for them. And so the Invisible Woman became unforgettable, not for the clothes she wore or the money she had, but for the way she loved, for the way she transformed lives, for the way she proved every single day that true nobility isn't in a surname or a bank account, it's in the heart. And Marina had the noblest heart of all. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Marina, Henry, and the entire Alistair family has deeply touched your hearts. If you were moved by this journey of love, courage, and new beginnings, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which moment stood out to you the most. Did you identify with Marina's struggle? Did you root for her love with Henry? Were you touched by the family's transformation? We want to know everything. Every day we bring intense and true stories like this one, which reveal the deepest and most beautiful side of the human soul. Stories that make us believe that true love exists and that we all deserve to be happy, regardless of where we come from. We await you in the next episode with another story that will make you laugh, cry, and believe in the transformative power of love. See you soon, and thank you for being part of this journey with us.